Hi everybody, this is my second video about Twin Peaks Season 3. In this video, if you haven't watched my first video, which is the main video about my theory of what has happened in Season 3, you should watch it, because maybe some things that I will be talking in this video you will just not understand. The link is in the description, and of course there are going to be spoilers. So I suggest that if you haven't seen Twin Peaks Season 3 at all, I suggest that you watch it. A lot of people find this television series very puzzling. It's definitely very puzzling and mind-blowing. The finale has really sent people into a frenzy. You should watch it. And if you haven't, so stop this video right now. Don't even go to watch my first video. But if you have seen my first video and you like my theory about what exactly happened in, world number 1, world number 2, and this thing in the middle, the world of the lodge. This is what I'm going to call it. Bear with me, because I'm going to answer the question of the entire, it is now the question of the entire series. Was only asked once, and that was the very last line of dialogue of episode 18, and that is, of course, what year is this? So I'm going to answer this, and also there are a few things that I did talk about in the main video, but I feel that I didn't really, maybe I wasn't really clear enough maybe about some things, so I made a few notes, and I will address them in a couple of minutes. But before making this video, I watched episodes 17 and 18 again and again and again and again and again. And then I also watched episode 8, which is a very important episode. And this episode basically gives us an answer in a very David Lynchian way about who is the dreamer. So I also know who is the dreamer. So you're going to get all sorts of answers in this video. So just to remind you, my theory in the main video was that, okay, there's one world that we know. This is the world of Twin Peaks. This is world number 2. World number 2 was introduced only at the end of episode 18, when Dale Cooper wakes up at the motel, and he finds the letter from Linda to Richard. He doesn't know what that is, but he is on he's on his way to get Laura Palmer. He knows where she is. He knows where she's working. So he has information. He knows who he is after. And basically, my conclusion was that in this world, Laura Palmer she's in Odessa, Texas. And in this version of the world, she is actually the killer of her mother. We don't know what happened to the father. Maybe he's still alive somewhere. Maybe he's dead. I think he's dead. And that she has killed her mother in Twin Peaks when she was a child, and then she ran away and disappeared, and no one has ever found her ever since. And she somehow managed to survive, and now she is she's living this double life as a Carrie Page, and she's in trouble as Carrie Page as well. So Laura Palmer is always in trouble. Um, Also, I said that world number one, the world of Twin Peaks that we have come to learn, season one, two, and three, and world number two are mirror images of one another. And I also come to think that there's a reason why these worlds are mirror images of one another. And this is like, it doesn't, it's not said anywhere, it's not mentioned, but there's one very important thing in Twin Peaks and in a lot of other David Lynch movies. It's a very influential thing in David Lynch movies, and that is electricity. And I thought about it a lot, and electricity makes things happen, and it definitely makes things happen in Twin Peaks. Sometimes it just evokes emotions, it evokes fear. Sometimes it's a symbol or a sign in the movie that something bad is going to happen. And in the world of David Lynch, the lack of electricity is bad. And when there is electricity, it's good. So basically, when there's light, it's good. When there's darkness, because of lack of electricity, it's a bad thing. In Twin Peaks, this idea of electricity is even is taken even further, and electricity in Twin Peaks is flowing all around the people on the electricity poles and the electricity cables, and it makes things happen. Basically, the thing is that the world of the lodge is inside these electricity cables, or just the electromagnetic power that is generated by the electricity current. So you can very well you can very well even position or locate the world of the lodge, so to speak, within some kind of an electromagnetic field, and this also could be the reason why things behave the way they behave in the world of the lodge. Now, when I say the world of the lodge, I mean the red room, which is also sometimes called the waiting room, and it's also this place where the giant lives with this senorita. This entire huge building in the realm of non-existence. I think it's the realm because when in episode 8, when we are introduced to the giant, we basically find ourselves flowing above this ocean, this black ocean of non-existence, or some kind of black ocean somewhere which is nowhere, and we flow and we go we get closer and closer to this giant castle. It's really big, and we get more closer and closer and closer. It looks very much like the opening sequence of episode 3 when Cooper meets Nato for the first time, and then he meets the character of American Girl. I will touch this. I will talk about this sequence of episode 3 also in a few minutes. I hope I will make it less than an hour and a half. It's been 9 minutes now, so let's hope I'll do it as short as possible. So the entire world, this entire world of the Red Room and where the giant is, and where Nato was, which is the realm of non-existence, and all of that, it's one world. It's one place. I also almost come to think that there is no such thing really as a Black Lodge or White Lodge. It's all Black Lodge. It's all the lodge. Maybe there is a White Lodge. Personally, I do not believe that we have been ever introduced to the White Lodge. I don't remember if anything like that happened. In seasons 1 and 2, I don't know if we've ever seen anything that is basically the White Lodge. I don't think, but people are always talking about the Black Lodge, the Black Lodge. But the Black Lodge looks like a red room with a zigzag floor. So I don't think there is such a thing, a White Lodge, really. I think it's I don't know, maybe a suggestion or someone's dream that there would be, a White Lodge. So this thing is a world unto itself. Now, electricity. Yeah, the reason why these worlds are mirrors of one another. Electricity is a plus and a minus. So when you have a plus coming in touch with a minus, you have a flow of electricity. That's how electricity works. Now, plus and minus, yin, yang, opposites attract, all of that. And scientists are talking about matter and antimatter. So I've come to think that it's very logical that in terms of science, and because of electricity, and because electricity is so important in Twin Peaks, I've come to think that one of these worlds is a plus and one is a minus. It's actually up for us to decide which one is whatever we want it to be, the plus or the minus. And it's matter and antimatter. They sort of, when matter and antimatter meet each other, they basically annihilate one another. They stop to exist. And it's not really happening in Twin Peaks, but that's the basic idea. Now, it could also be that you have matter here and antimatter here, or the other way around. Doesn't matter. Could matter be here and antimatter here, but because we have the lodge in the middle, these worlds are not annihilating one another because they don't meet each other. And I also come to think about this thing of matter and antimatter because basically episode 8 shows us that everything begins with a nuclear explosion, and we know that our universe has started. If you are into the Big Bang Theory, our entire universe started because of a huge explosion, which was indeed a nuclear explosion. In those levels, the Big Bang was probably the biggest nuclear explosion in the history of the universe. And it's always been theorized by scientists that nuclear explosions in a very big size explosions can open portals into different dimensions, into other universes. And these theories are very valid in the scientific community. And I mean, you have physicists, not physicians, physicists, who are really researching into these things with mathematics and all of that. I wish I was good at math, because I would probably go to study physics, because it's so interesting. Sometimes it sounds completely crazy, but in movies there's no such thing as crazy. Everything goes. So that's one thing. I think that this world of the Lodge, the Giant, and all these characters, the Arm, and the entities, they are within their own universe, which is an electromagnetic universe, or something that is inside an electromagnetic field. And this is how they flow within the worlds, within the possibilities of the two worlds, the matter and antimatter. Because in science, matter and antimatter exist, and this is the reason why I'm talking about it. Matter and antimatter annihilate each other, but the Lodge doesn't. It doesn't let these worlds annihilate one another. So that's one thing. So this is why I think is very logical that basically what happened to Cooper is that he went through this, you know, time tunnel to where he needed and where he wanted to go, into the other world. And it's very possible that in the antimatter world, Major Briggs could be very much alive. Um, he is dead, in the world that we know, in this world number one, but in world number two, he could be very well alive. His head is still floating in the lodge, and it means that he could very well be there. Okay. Now, time. The scenes with the giant are all in black and white, and episode 8 is all black and white. Since at least from the beginning of the 1945 nuclear explosion until the end, it's all black and white. Now, black and white in color cinema is usually used. The most classic use of black and white, when we go from color to black and white, means that we have gone to the past. And of course, that's because old movies were in black and white. So we historically sort of got used to the idea that that black and white is the past because of old movies. In Twin Peaks, this is exactly what it is. It is the past. And always remember Mike asking Cooper over and over again, at least twice. Maybe he asked this many more times during the 25 years Cooper spent in the lodge. What is it future? Is it past? So the black and white is past. Now, if you look very carefully, and I did look very carefully in episode 8 at the explosion itself, some of the explosion is in color, and other shots of the explosion are in black and white. I don't know exactly why that is, but I get the feeling that there is a reason to that. And the reason is that the black and white is actually happening in 1945, and the color I actually don't know, but I think that the color has something to do with the present, and it has to do something with dreams. Now, this all sounds very complicated, and I will explain. I have an explanation for everything. My belief, to make a long story short, is that the entire sequence, or almost the entire episode 8 of Twin Peaks Season 3, is a dream. And it's a dream of Laura Palmer, the girl who had just killed her mother. And to explain this, I will need to explain again, just like I did in my main video. So you're probably already, if you've watched it, and if you're a David Lynch fan, you already know this. The way that David Lynch thinks, and this is the question of the dreamer. Who is the dreamer? A dreamer in David Lynch movie is usually the character It's the main character, and this is begun with Lost Highway. It's the character that has the burden of guilt, and it's a character who had done something wrong, something they cannot cope with, and mostly it's murder, because murder is one of the is the number one crime. And the characters in David Lynch movies are they murder people, but they are not psychopathic murderers. They are everyman. They are people who had their lives going in one direction, and then something happened and that turned their entire world around. And the resolution of that was that they did something they thought they will never do, they never even imagined that they will do, and that is to murder someone. In Lost Highway, Fred Madison, the main character, he discovers that his wife she's not just cheating on him, she's actually a porn star. She's making porn movies, so that's like infidelity 1,000 times fold. And so he kills her because he cannot stand, this thing. And then he cannot stand the fact that he had killed her. So this is the story of Lost Highway. In Mulholland Drive, we have the story of a young actress falling in love with a bigger known, more famous actress. And this actress also cheats on her with a man. And so she kills her. She basically invites, she hires a hitman to kill her cheating lover. And she has the dream. And the first 2 hours of the movie are the dream of the murderer / victim, because these murderers they were not born murderers. They became murderers because of a terrible emotional turmoil. So they are both murderers and victims. You feel for them, and you feel for them because they are completely collapsing. These people are completely collapsing into insanity, and so they are both criminals and victims at the same time. And this is how I refer to Laura Palmer as well. She is definitely a victim. In world number 1, she gets raped and killed by her own father, and in world number 2, she's the victim of an abusive mother. And then she kills her. She stays alive. She kills her, but she still is a murderer, but also a victim of an abusive mother. So I would say that the entire episode 8 is a representation of the birth of Laura Palmer and the birth of the evil that haunts Laura Palmer in the face of Bob. Okay, Bob is the evil. And it definitely could be that in this world, Bob is the evil inside Sarah Palmer. In this world, Bob is inside Leland Palmer, but here it could be very well inside Sarah Palmer, because this is plus, this is minus, this is mirror images, matter and antimatter. And in matter, the world of the plus matter, okay, goes this way, and in the minus matter, it goes the other way around. So things are different. I mean, things are the same, but they are the opposite. They are like a negative picture of one another. So, but basically what episode 8 represents is the birth of Laura Palmer, the birth of evil that will haunt Laura Palmer, evil and just piece of shit luck, okay? Because Laura Palmer is in trouble. She's always in trouble, right? So it's the birth of that, and it's the birth of Laura Palmer. We see her inside the golden orb, and she's smiling inside. She's the good Laura Palmer. This is the good side of Laura Palmer. This is the pure essence of what Laura Palmer was when she was in the womb, and then when she was just a little girl. We don't really know. It doesn't say anywhere, but we don't know when exactly Laura Palmer's mother started to abuse her. We do know that in this world, Laura tells this to Harold Smith, that her father began molesting her when she was 12. And now, when she just a few days, at the time of her murder, she's something like 17. She's 17 going 18. She's probably 12th grade, and she's gonna be 18. So she's murdered just a short time before she turns 18 years old. So her father started molesting her when she was 12 years old. In this world, we don't know what's happening, but at some point, the mother started molesting Laura. So the dream of Laura Palmer is that basically she tells herself that she was born pure and sent out to the world, and she was born out of this nuclear explosion. It's very reminiscent of the beginning of Eraserhead. And I almost am certain that this is, again, everything I'm telling you in this video and in the main video I made is I'm trying to think like David Lynch, okay? So if you've seen Eraserhead, in Eraserhead you have the first scene of the movie is actually a sex scene. But we only see one side or one party of the sex, which is the man. Okay, and his head is floating in space, just like Major Briggs. And then he opens his mouth, okay, and a semen comes out of his mouth and falls into this pool of water, which is the symbol of the vagina and then the womb. And when this surreal sequence ends, a few scenes later, we realize that this guy Henry has impregnated his girlfriend. So the movie starts with a representation of a sex scene. It's not the sex scene that has really happened. It's the way Henry sees the sex, because Henry, it looks like Henry Spencer, I think, is very afraid of sex. He's very afraid of women. It's a real kind of film noir kind of thing, the fear of women. So the first surreal scene, that opens the movie Eraserhead, got me to this idea that the almost entire episode 8 is actually a dream or a representation of the way a 13-year-old or 11-year-old Laura Palmer feels, and this is the thing she tells to herself in her head, okay, after she kills her mother. Now, it becomes interesting. The explosion takes place in 1945. And then we see the monster. The monster is spewing, the evil. And then the giant, he sees that on the screen. And he creates the orb of Laura Palmer. So it's 1945. And then we jump to 1956. 11 years later, Laura Palmer kills her mother. Why? Because you do know that I have spoken about the little girl who lives down the lane. This is where this entire thing gets its inspiration from. Story of Rin. I'm not going to get into that. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go to see the main video. Link is in the description below. So she kills her mother, 1956, age 11. This is Twin Peaks. And she runs away. Now, the way she explains this thing to herself in the dream, the representation, this is 1956 now, okay, the Bob orb and the Laura orb created by the giant, that was in 1945. In 1956, it's the time of the murder. And in the time of the murder, what happens is we have the egg and the moth frog, which is basically a representation of death in dreams. Not moth frog, but insects usually, in Freudian theory at least, are representations of death or maybe some kind of violence. But they are not good representations. And this moth frog goes inside the mouth of a very innocent-looking girl, which is the way Laura wants to see herself. I saw many videos trying to theorize that this young girl is young Sarah Palmer. Now, the reason why this is absolutely impossible is because this girl is either Latin or Native American. Sarah Palmer is not Latin and she's not Native American. She's white, Anglo-Saxon, European origin. In other words, she's white. And this young girl looks nothing like Sarah Palmer. Nothing at all like Sarah Palmer. She looks like either she is, like I said, Latin or Native American. And the boy also is Latin or Native American. We don't know what the names of these two teenagers are, but I think it's not really important. And this girl is, in the dream, is basically a representation of Laura herself, the way she would like to be, young and innocent, and being, going with this guy who wants to be her boyfriend, and kissing her probably first kiss. This girl is very young. We can see her. She has a very small breast. She's maybe 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old. She's very much like Laura Palmer at the time of murdering her mother. And then this girl, goes home, and she puts on the radio, and we hear the Platter song. And then, of course, the woodsman comes, and he basically puts to sleep the entire town, which is a dream town. We don't know where this town is. It could be in Texas, or New Mexico or something. We're not really sure where this town is. It's pretty mysterious. But it's probably somewhere along this, Texas, New Mexico thing. And she goes into a room. The woodsman comes and he recites the poem. Everybody falls asleep, but he has a plan. And the plan of the woodsman is to make everyone fall asleep, so she falls asleep, and have the moth frog come into her mouth. This is the representation of evil coming into Laura Palmer, making her kill her mother. But of course, also we have to remember that because this is a very complicated thing. This is basically a complex. She's not to blame. Laura Palmer, she knows that she is not to blame. She's not. She killed her mother, but it's really not her fault. It's her mother's fault because she abused her. Okay, this is an abused child killing the parent that abuses them. In this case, her. So this is what the moth frog represents. The moth frog represents the mother, the bad mother, and the death that has occurred, and it's going into her mouth. And this is how the dream world of Laura Palmer, the young Laura Palmer, this is the dream. In the dream world, this is how this entire thing is explained. We are inside Laura Palmer's psyche through the entire episode. Okay, just think about the way David Lynch thinks. In Lost Highway, we spend half a movie inside the hallucinating mind of Fred Madison. There is no reason whatsoever not to think that this half hour of episode 8 is something that's going on in the mind of the dreamer. And this is the dreamer. The dreamer is Laura Palmer. It's Laura Palmer's dream. Or it's Laura Palmer's, hallucination or something, or the explanation inside her subconscious. This is what's going on inside her subconscious. Or the camera of David Lynch is inside the brain and is filming how the brain reworks all the things so that the person can go on living even after they did something horrible like killing their mother. So this is what this thing is all about. Now, it's in black and white because it's the past. Okay. Now, let's go back to first scene of episode 1. Episode 1, first scene. Cooper and the Giant. Black and white scene. Now, why is this in black and white? Because it happens in the past. It happens in the past, and not necessarily 1945 or 1956. We have to remember that in the world of the Lodge, this time is irrelevant. You can move through time. You can go wherever you want to go, whether you are in this world or in this world. Okay, so we are somewhere in the past. And things can be told about the future, and and the Giant tells Cooper things that will happen in the future, things that still have not happened, and things that we actually are witnessing in episode 18. Also, when Dale Cooper is thrown into the scene of Laura in episode 17, when he's thrown into the woods, seeing Laura and James Hurley on the bike, the famous scene on the bike. Okay, it's all in black and white, and it's in black and white because it's the past. Cooper is thrown into the past. Whenever we see black and white, it's the past. It's not present. It's the past. He's thrown into the past, and of course we know that he does not save Laura Palmer. And this is a very interesting thing that the world of Twin Peaks tells us. Time inside the lodge, okay, time is irrelevant. But in the worlds, okay, in the real worlds, our world, the antimatter world, time is goes forward. You cannot change. You cannot change time. You cannot. Basically, it is impossible um, to travel back in time and, for instance, kill your own grandfather, because this means that if you kill your grandfather, you are not born, and if you are not born, you cannot go back into the past and kill your grandfather. So it's a rule of physics. Okay, it's a natural law. You cannot go to the past and change things, because the entire real world will collapse, whether it's the matter world or the antimatter world. Time loops are impossible. Okay, this is why it's impossible to save Laura Palmer in this world. She's dead, she's been murdered, and if she's not have been murdered, Dale Cooper would not have come to Twin Peaks in the first place. So he cannot undo, basically, he cannot undo nature. He cannot undo things that have already been done. It's impossible. And this is one thing is very, very important to understand when you're watching Twin Peaks. You know, oh, Dale goes to the past and he tries this and he tries to do that, and he's on a constant loop of time. No, he's not in a loop of time. There is no possibility of creating a time loop, because time loops are impossible. You cannot undo things. Now, I have created a couple notes about stuff. Let's see what are my notes about time. No, not many, not too much notes about time. But basically, this is what happens. Okay, you cannot create. You cannot live in a constant time loop. You cannot change the past. And this is why Dale Cooper grows old. He's gone to the lodge when he's like something like I don't know, when he's something like, it looks like he's 25 or something, 26. He's very young. And 25 or 26, 25 years have passed, and now he's a 50-year-old man. And so is Laura in this world, because this is the antimatter world. And in the antimatter world, she killed her mother, but she's alive, and so she can become 50 or close to 50, which is what we see she is. Now, if we assume that she killed her mother at the age of maybe 11 years old, or 13 years old, even 13 years old. Let's say even if she was born in 1943, okay, not 1945, 1943, okay, and she killed her mother in 1956. That's 16 years old. Now you add 16, you add around 33 years from 1956, we get 1989. This is very interesting. 16 and 33 is 49 years old. Okay, so she's 49 years old. She's 49. No, I'm sorry. I think I made a mistake. It's a very embarrassing mathematical mistake, right? You have 16 plus 33 is 49 years old. Now, 1989 Well, yep, yep, 49 years old. Okay, in 1989. Cooper is 50 something, and so we're getting there. We're getting to the point of what year is this? Now let's imagine that in this world, um, Laura runs away from Twin Peaks. Let's maybe with her father. Okay, let's stick to the story of the little girl who lives down the lane. Okay, she runs away with her father to a very far away from Twin Peaks. They go off to New Mexico, or they go to Texas or something like that. Somewhere in America, which is a very big country where no one knows them. Okay, and Twin Peaks itself is changing. Other people are coming, and and the story is forgotten. And the Palmer House is now being bought by other people, by other people, by other people, and then by the Chalfonts, and then by the Tremonts. The Tremonts have, a generation has passed, 30 years have passed, and they have no idea who the Palmers were, and probably if the owners of the house who lived there after the Palmers have run away, they wouldn't want to tell someone who wants to buy the house that there's been a murder. So, because otherwise they wouldn't buy the house. So this is how we get to Tremont in the end. Now, let's go back to Cooper and Jeffries. Cooper asks Jeffries to go somewhere and to go to a specific date. Jeffries says, "Be specific." He already knows what Cooper wants because they're in the lodge. Everybody knows everything. So, and Cooper says February 23rd, 1989. So, in the world of the matter and in the world of the antimatter, there is February 23rd, 1989. So Jeffries, again creates this infinity sign, and we see something moving there, and he says you can go in now. What actually happens is that Dale Cooper, this is not what we really, this is not in any chronological order, because some of the things in Twin Peaks are not in chronological order. Forget it. What actually happens is that Cooper goes into this time tunnel where he meets Diane, and he drives with her to a motel. This is not a real world yet. Dale Cooper is not in the real world yet with Diane. He is still in the exit of the lodge. If, the lodge might have entrances and exits. So he sends him to a place, some kind of within the electromagnetic field, where they go into this motel and they have sex. And we hear the Platters song. This could be 1956. And I believe it is 1956. This is where Cooper basically goes into like an intersection between these worlds. Finally. Okay, so he is himself, but he's thrown to 1956. And what happens in this scene is very interesting. The sex scene with Diane. The sex scene with Diane is I don't know really how to explain it other than a representation or some kind of hallucination. Um, I'm totally not fond of theories that say that that everything happens in a dream. It's not what at all what happens in Twin Peaks, and yet people still believe that things happen, everything happens inside a dream. I don't believe that. I believe that this is some kind of an exit from the lodge, from the electromagnetic field that basically is like it's like a barrier between the two worlds. Okay, so the worlds do not collide. Okay, because in the nuclear explosion, it opened this it opened this thing into a new world, but there's still a barrier. And the barrier is the lodge and the world of the lodge. And so he has sex with Diane, and I think that this scene is a representation of is a reverse representation of a rape of Laura Palmer and her father. I mean, Laura being raped by her father, and she puts her hands on Cooper's face. And it reminds me of a scene. It immediately reminded me of a scene in Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, when Leland Palmer goes to Teresa Banks, who runs a small brothel. She's a madame and a prostitute herself, and he sleeps with her, and he puts his hand on her face, on her eyes, and he asks her, "Who am I?" And she says, "I don't know." And it reminded me of that scene. And what I think is happening in this scene is that Diane, in the imagination, because they have sort of somehow gotten into Laura Palmer's dream, because it happens parallel to what is going on with the woodsman, and he's going to the radio station and they play the Platters. So basically what happens is that she somehow she takes the blame, she takes the guilt. This is why she's crying in the sex. But it's only a representation. We are going to get out of the dream. We are going to get out of the lodge very soon, and into this world that will make the dream look somewhat logical. Okay, so still in this place, in this very strange place that it could be. Again, some kind of a fantasy or hallucination created by the lodge within the time tunnel that Dale Cooper goes into with Diane. They have sex, and in the sexual act, Diane sort of she begins to harbor all the fear and the guilt of Laura Palmer killing her mother. And this is why it could also be the reason why she sees herself out of the car just before they go into the room. She sees herself, and it could be just her imagination, but it also could be a trick of the lodge, because the lodge does lots of tricks, and it did trick Cooper to do stuff. Something that happens in episode 3. I'll talk about it in a minute. And basically, she becomes Laura Palmer. And in this ritualistic or some kind of they sort of they remake that scene of the rape. And it could also be the rape that the tulpa Diane talked about to Gordon when she said that Doppelday raped her. She doesn't say Doppelday. She says Dale Cooper raped me. But I actually don't think that's very important. And it all comes up to that, that it was a tulpa and that everything, was a lie. But father raping Laura Palmer is not a lie. It's something that happens in the matter or antimatter world. It doesn't matter which is matter or antimatter. It doesn't matter. Plus, minus, plus, minus. It doesn't matter. So you choose whatever you want. Okay. So it's a representation of that, and this is why she disappears. And once they get out of the time tunnel, okay, out of the lodge finally. Cooper wakes up and Diana's not there, and it's a different time. It's a different time. He went out to the day that he asked Philip Jeffries to go. February 23rd, 1989. This is the day that Dale Cooper meets Laura Palmer, now Carrie Page. That's her pseudonym in this world. Okay, he went from here right through the lodge. Took him 25 fucking years, and now he's here. February 23rd, 1989. This is the same day that he first came to Twin Peaks. Here. He goes back, but he's 25 years older. He's 25 years older, okay? And Laura is 25 years older. Or something like that. And now they're here. And they go to Twin Peaks, and he doesn't understand what's happening. He doesn't understand what's happening, and everything seems very strange to him. He has a 2010 or 2015, I don't know, a car, but the entire world is different. Everything is different, and he's just a man on a mission. He goes like an automaton. He goes like a robot. He goes to Judy's because he knows that he needs to go to Judy's because this is where Laura Palmer's working. This is, Philip Jeffries told him this, or Philip Jeffries or an agent of Philip Jeffries. He has been told all of this information. And when he asked Philip Jeffries to go to February 23rd, 1989. And so he takes Laura, they go up the stairs, talk to Mrs. Tremont, and then Cooper just doesn't understand where he does not understand where he is. Because he's in a real world now. He's flesh and blood, he's alive, everything looks absolutely, very strange, very mysterious, very familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, like in a dream. But it's not, he's in the antimatter world. He's now antimatter. Okay. And he says, what year is this? Because Laura is if this was like 25 years into the future, it should have been like 2015. Okay. But it's not 2015. It's February 23rd, 1989. The same day that, Cooper first saw Laura Palmer's, the first day when Cooper came to Twin Peaks and saw Laura Palmer's body. This is, what year is this? It's February 23rd, 1989, ladies and gentlemen. And when you think about it, it's very, very logical, and this is exactly the way that David Lynch thinks. This is how the mind of David Lynch works. It's not 1946, it's not 1945, 1956. It's February 23rd, 1989. Laura Palmer comes back to Twin Peaks. Since 1956, she was not there because she is a mother murderer. And she stands at the door and, whatever Cooper knows, right, about what happened in seasons 1 and 2, everything is like, phew, we enter something completely new. But we are stuck. I said before that you cannot get stuck in a time loop because the reality always goes straight, whatever world you're in. That is true. But he has been sent to a reality by the Lodge, by Philip Jeffries, to the same date that he asked. So we are in another side of the story of Laura Palmer. It might sound strange. I know it sounds crazy. Maybe it sounds bonkers to some people. But there is really no, all the answers are right in front of our eyes. You just have to think the way David Lynch thinks. Now, I promised you I will touch the subject of episode 3. American Girl. Okay, so in episode 3, Cooper falls into this realm of non-existence, and then there inside this room he meets Nato. Now we know that Nato is Diane, who was also locked in the lodge for a purpose. Now we know what the purpose is, and the purpose is well, it looks like it's to become Laura Palmer. Strangely enough, and then he meets another girl, and this character is credited as American Girl, and apparently she is being played by the same actress who played Renette Pulaski in the original run of Twin Peaks. And so everybody was thinking that that this is actually Renette Pulaski, trapped somewhere in the lodge. But this is not Renette Pulaski. She tells him that basically she rushes him. Okay, she tells him that he has to go very quickly because her mother is coming. Now, there's only one character in Twin Peaks. Now that you have followed me, there's only one character that can be afraid of her mother, and that is Laura Palmer. So if Nato is Diane, but she just looks different, then American Girl is a representation of Laura Palmer. And her mother is knocking on the door. Maybe she wants to, come into the room and, spank her or something, hit her or yell at her or whatever way she abuses her. And she also tells him that when you get there, you will already be there. And I think now that, and then of course he goes through that instrument on the wall, which we discover that is on the other side. It's an electricity socket, and that's how he becomes Dougie Jones. Now, of course, for the entire Dougie thing, or the entire time he spends as being Dougie, of course, he's not Dougie Jones. He's Dale Cooper. It's just everybody else thinks that he's Dougie Jones because he was found as Dougie Jones by the black prostitute. And she tells him, when you get there, you will already be there. And now when I think about it, now after watching all these sequences and episodes time and time again, what I really think is that she refers is to the fact that Dale Cooper wakes up in the motel. He thinks that Diane is there. She's not there, but he remembers he was with her at night. So it's like he's awake in the same place, but it's like he doesn't know where he is. So when you get there, you will already be there. Okay, how did I get here? What year is this? Okay, these things, they all come together, and they create this very strong and very solid structure of story, that Cooper goes through. And so what basically happens to Cooper is you can say that in the lodge, Cooper falls into the dreams and fantasies of Laura Palmer as a living entity, as a living person in the other, in the other dimension, the antimatter world, in the minus world, or in the plus world. Depends, it doesn't really, like I said, doesn't matter whether it's plus or minus, because everything that is matter has its antimatter. Okay, and in this world, Laura Palmer is a mother murderer. Okay, and she has these dreams and these ideas and fantasies, just like Fred Madison and just like Diane Selwyn in Mulholland Drive, that she's trying to block the tragedy from her mind so that she can basically go on living where she is in Odessa, Texas. So this is basically my complementary theory, and why I think my theory of this thing, this double worlds and mirror image worlds works really well. And you just have to remember that all the answers are there. So what year is this? It's 1989, ladies and gentlemen. We're back to the same spot as the beginning, as in the beginning of the series. And it's really it's really the only logical thing that Lynch and Frost could do. I think that if it was a different director, he would actually tell us it right in the face. Lynch told us right in the face, but not in the way we were thinking. He just put it in Dale Cooper's mouth. He asks Philip Jeffries, "Send me to February 23rd, 1989," and that's exactly what he's doing. But what is all of those things with 1945, 1956? What happened there? Okay, what happened there is the story of this world of Laura Palmer being a child in Twin Peaks, killing her mother, running away, maybe with her father, maybe not with her father. It doesn't look important now. It also kind of clears, it clears her father, from his, character as a rapist and a murderer in this world. Okay, and he twice in the series he tells Cooper in the lodge, find Laura. He wants to know where his daughter is. Maybe he's dead. Maybe it's a spirit of the dead Leland Palmer. Maybe it's a representation of some kind of Leland Palmer who lives in this world, but we still don't know because we only saw this world, right, in episode 18, and a very, very small part of this world, right? We almost haven't seen anyone but Dale, Laura, and the dead guy on the sofa. And so, he wants to know where Laura is because he's worried about her. He wants to finally know where his daughter. She ran away in 1956. Maybe he died sometime in the 1960s, or maybe he never saw her since 1956, and he wants to know what's happening to her. So he asks Dale Cooper in the lodge, find Laura, and maybe come back to the lodge and tell me where she is, right? And that's his mission, find Laura and bring her home to her father, who is now, he's not there, okay? Because time is irreversible in these parallel worlds. Time always goes forward. This is why Dale Cooper, in this world, 1989, he's 25 years older. It's like the clock, 253. It's always standing. But even though it's standing, time goes on. Time does go forward. And the only place where you can play with time is in the lodge, is in this within the electromagnetic field that harbors the world of the lodge. And this is how the logic of Twin Peaks works. So I hope you guys are satisfied with this. I hope you find this a valid theory. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. I'd love to know what you think about it, because it really gives lots of answers to everything we need, especially if we think like David Lynch, if we think Lost Highway, if we think Mulholland Drive, if we think Inland Empire, this works exactly the same. So, all of these dream sequences and stuff, and especially episode 8, which now I explained what was this all about. Um, you know, that's pretty solid. So I hope you agree with me. If not, if you have any questions or stuff, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think, and I will answer as best as I can. So thank you very much for joining me, and goodbye.